Hello, welcome to Buster Bottom Outdoors. I'm James. I'm your host on this channel. I know I've posted a few things here in the past few days. I'm just kind of getting used to how to do this. We're going to try to work it out and hopefully have some good videos for you. It's all going to be concerning hunting, fishing, kayaking, boating, anything to do with outdoors, hiking. Now, the origination of the title come from, come here, Buster. See if y'all can see him here. I don't know if that's, all right, look out, look out. There you go. Let me see if I can turn this around so you can see him. Stop. Buster. This is Buster. Sit. No, sit. There you go. Stay right there. Say hi to the people. Say hi to the people. All right. Well, that's about as much cooperation as you're going to get out of him. So, anyway, as I was saying, he's trying to kill me here. We're going to try to have some fun on here. There ain't gonna be no political talk. I don't do all of that. We're not into that. I have my opinions. You have your opinions. I have opinions on hunting. I have opinions on fishing. They may not match with yours. We hope that they align somewhat. I hunt all three seasons, if you want to call them that: archery, muzzleloading, and gun. I have shot some big deer. I have shot some small deer. I don't care what people think. I hunt for me. I don't hunt for everybody else. And I try to fill my freezer first, and then I trophy hunt after that. And whatever happens after, you know, as that goes along, if I always felt like it, you can only, bless you, if you can only hunt on the weekends and all you see is a spike, then maybe you want to shoot a spike. That's up to you. If you want to shoot a 2-year-old 8-pointer, I could care less. I'm not going to be there for his birthday. You know, whatever makes you happy. Trophies come in all sizes. I do a little bit of taxidermy work, mainly for myself. A little later I'll take you up to my what I call my man cave. I'll show you some of that stuff up there. But when I went to taxidermy school in Texas, the instructor down there said, never crap on a guy's deer that he brings in. He said, and don't always just have a bunch of humongous deer hanging on your walls. He said, have small deer hanging up there too, because the guy that comes in that killed an 8-pointer, that might be the biggest deer he's ever seen in his life, and might be the biggest deer he's ever killed, and he's proud of it. And if he comes in there and he sees all these monsters on the wall, you might have just lost a sale, because he's thinking, well, this ain't worth getting mounted. And you know, I have some smaller deer mounted on my wall. Some of them, they've all got a story behind them. I do all my own mounts, and so, you know, if I feel like I want to mount it, because I look for odd deer. I like deer that are not exactly perfect. I don't look for that perfect, you know, rack, or if they got a broken antler, all the better for me. I know there's guys out there, oh, I'm gonna pass that deer because he's got a broken antler. Well, go ahead. Comes my way, I'll shoot him, because I like those. I like them to be a little weird. The weirder the better. That's, you know, where the conversation starts, and so that's where I like to be. Now on this channel, I'm going to try to do some different stuff. I'm going to try to tell some stories. I've got stories that you wouldn't believe. You'll probably call me a liar when I tell them to you, but they're true. And you know, I'm going to try to get them to you the best I can, as straight up as I can, because you know, I've done some things that was stupid, and I've had friends that's done some things that was stupid, and you know, now we sit back and laugh at them. We look back and we think, I can't believe I did that. And you know, I was young, dumb, I did all kinds of stuff. So we're gonna try to be honest with you and fill you in on some of that. And you know, I got a couple stories of a friend of mine that's passed away now, and I know he would be happy as he could be to let you know that I was telling them stories, because he was very proud of them. One of them, his mother had me tell at his funeral. So you know, we're gonna have a good time and see what we can do. Just enjoy life. That's the way I'm looking at it. And I hope you enjoy this channel. And I'm not going to do a whole lot more chit-chatting here. We're going to put this on pause and see if we can't put Buster up, because he's bugging me here. And then we'll get back to maybe I'll tell you a story. Maybe I'll start it off with a story. Pause video. All right, we back here. See if I can tell you this story. You've got to have a little bit of context with it. The fella that this is about, his name was Robert. We all called him Rabbit. That's another story of how he got the nickname, but he was a good old guy. He was one of those guys that do anything for you. You know, if you needed to move, all you had to do was call him, and he was right there, especially if you had a spliff. If you don't know what a spliff is, talk to some of the 70s hippies and they'll explain it to you. But he was always good about being there for you. He was a great friend. Unfortunately, he passed away, had a heart attack, and at his funeral, his mother asked if I would tell this story, because he was so proud of this deer and of his story. So I'm going to try to tell you. I'm going to try to do it justice, and we'll go on and get started. We hunted on a horse ranch, and it was out in Roanoke County, and a horse ranch ran up into some public land, and I was hunting at a spot up in there that I had seen some large deer, and I was trying to keep Rabbit from going up into my spot, because he kept talking about he was going to come up towards my way. Now, you know, he's my buddy, and but he smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, not to mention the other smokage that he had. And you know, he smoked while he was hunting. He had it in his mind that that wasn't going to bother the deer. And so I told him, I said, you know, I've been seeing this 8-pointer. I said, it's a nice 8-pointer. I said, there was an old tree stand up there. I said, comes down by that tree stand. I said, if you go up there and you don't smoke a pack of cigarettes, I said, you'll probably see him. So we got up that morning. It was bright and early. There was probably 6 or 8 of us hunting up there. We had a big group back in. And we was all going up the mountain somewhere. You know, I was going to my spot. He was going to go down there. I told him, I said, I'll take you down there to where it's at. I'll drop you off, and you just sit there and wait. And I said, you'll probably see that deer. I said, he comes through there, you know, about 10 o'clock every morning. I said, I've jumped him several times, come, you know, walking around or whatever. I did a lot of walking when I hunted back then. And so he decided that he was going to do that. And so we all take off up there, and I show him where to go. He splits off, takes off down through the woods there. Now, that morning he was real proud, because he said, man, I just bought me a brand new box. He hunted with a 12-gauge single barrel shotgun. And he said, I just bought me a box of 5 of double alt buck. He said, I got plenty of shells. So he was happy that he had plenty of shells. Now you got to give you a picture of him. If you ever seen the comics like Jughead, he kind of looked like that. He had long, shaggy looking hair. He had a long, shaggy mustache and goatee. And he was a good old boy, but he was a little simple, I mean, to be honest. And but he was ready for that deer. So he goes down in there, and I go up there and I get my stand, and along about 9:30 or so, I hear boom, 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 boom. I thought, God, who was that down there shooting? I said, that can't be Rabbit. Now, you know, he had a single barrel shotgun. He had to break it down, put a shell in, but I mean, that sounded like somebody was shooting down there with a pump shotgun or a rifle or something, you know. I said, that sounded like where he was at, but there ain't no way that was him. So we all usually met back in the truck around lunchtime. We'd go out and get something to eat, come in, smoke a couple spliffs, and back in the woods we'd go. He never missed that, never. And so we all come out. There was one boy that didn't. Said he was going to the top of the mountain. He wasn't going to come out at lunch. Everybody else come out but Rabbit. We thought that was kind of strange because Rabbit, you know, like I said, he didn't miss the spliff action. And so anyway, we go on to the store, get something to eat. We grab him some stuff, you know, to eat, and we come back and wait around a little bit. He's still not there. So we started getting worried about him. I mean, you know, up there in the mountains by himself, he's a little bit clumsy, and you know, we got to thinking this might not be good. So we decided we was gonna go up there and look for him. So the whole gang of us, like I said, there was counting Rabbit, there's probably 7 of us. There's 4 or 5 of us down there. Anyway, the rest of us decided we was gonna go up through there and see what was going on. So we start up the trail. We get up to what we called the T-path, and on the T-path, one side went down towards the roadway, the other side went up the mountain. And so we get up towards the T-path and hear something, and we look up there, and sure enough, there's Rabbit. He's coming down through there, and he's staggering, and he's stumbling, and he's falling around, and he's got 2 guns in his hand. And we looked at each other and said, what in the world is going on? He's got 2 guns. And did he shoot somebody? You know, I mean, we started getting worried, and then as he got closer, we seen, and he was covered in blood. He had snot and boogers and stuff all in his beard and mustache and slobber. He had leaves in his hair, and you know, he was dirty, and just, he looked rough, man. I mean, he looked really rough. So we get up to him, and I said, Rabbit, I said, what's going on, man? I said, how'd you end up with 2 guns? And he said, I got that son bitch. I said, you got who? He said, I got that 8-pointer. I said, what do you mean you got the 8-pointer? He said, I'm going to have to stop and change the battery. Hang on. All right. Anyway, he said, I got him. I said, who'd you get? He said, I got that 8-pointer. He said, I got him. He said, he come down through there, and he said, I shot him. I said, well, back up a second. I said, you standing here, you got 2 guns, you got blood all over you. I said, you look like you've been rolling around in the dirt. I said, what's going on? He said, well, he said, I was sitting there, and he said, I'd smoked me a couple cigarettes. And he said, and I ate me a snack, and he said, I dozed off, and he said, I woke up. And he said, when I woke up, I looked over, and here come that 8-pointer up through there. He said, so I picked my gun up, He said, I drew a bead on him and I let loose. He said, I shot him 5 times. I said, so you shot him 5 times? He said, yes, I shot him 5 times. He said, but some bitch wasn't dead. He said, he trying to crawl off. I said, what do you mean he's trying to crawl off? He said, he had this one paw and he was trying to crawl off with it. He said, so I went over there, I took my knife out and throwed my knife at him. I said, now, what do you mean you throwed your knife at him? I said, you think you're Daniel Boone or something? He said, well, I thought I could hit him with my knife. And he said, I throwed my knife at him. I said, okay. I said, well, did it work? No. He said, it didn't work. Now, you know, all these guys we're all captivated by what he's telling us here. He said, no. He said, that didn't work. He said, I had my pocket knife. He said, I got it out. He said, I thought I'd cut his throat. He said, I went over there, grabbed that deer by the antlers to cut his throat. And he said, the fight was on. He said, and man, he said, we went round and round. He said, I lost my knife down there somewhere, so I couldn't cut his throat. And he said, he got on top of me, and he said, he was fighting me, and I was fighting him. And he said, he about beat me up. And I said, okay. I said, I understand, you know. I said, we've got so many questions. I said, where's the deer? He said, oh, he said, Junior's dragging the deer. Junior was one of the boys that was with us. He said, Junior's dragging the deer out for me. I said, now why is Junior dragging your deer? I said, I guess that answers why you have 2 guns. He said, yeah. He said, I told him I'd carry his gun. He said, and he set the guns up next to a tree, and he walked over there and he pulled his shirt up. And from the center of his chest to the center of his back, from about his neck down to his waist, was black and blue. He had hoof prints where that deer had stomped him with that one hoof. And he pulled his pants leg up, and there was the bloodiest, ugliest looking bruises you ever seen, all down his leg, from his hip all the way down to his ankle. He had perfect hoof prints in his leg, and he carried those hoof prints until the day he died. They scarred him, and he had them to the day he died. Now, he was proud of them. He would show you in a heartbeat. But I mean, it looked like he had been caught by a gang of guys that just beat the crap out of him. He was beat up bad. And like I said, he had blood all over him. Now, some of it was the deer's blood, some of it was his blood. But he said, me and that deer, said, we wrestled and we fought. We wrestled and we fought. Well, as he's telling this story, we could see Junior coming up the trail dragging his deer. Junior was a little bitty old feller. And he gets up there, and he just shaking his head. And said, well, Junior said, what's going on, buddy? He said, glad you helping Rabbit out here. He said, yeah. He said, I ain't never, man. He said, I was coming down the mountain. He said, I decided I'd come on out for lunch. And he said, I was coming down the mountain. He said, I heard something in the bottom of the hollow. He said, so I throwed the scope up because I thought it might be a deer down there. He said, and I seen antlers. He said, and then I seen Rabbit. He said, Rabbit had his legs wrapped around that deer's neck, and said he was holding on to his antlers. And he said his head was laid one way with his tongue hanging out, and he said that deer's head was laying the other way with his tongue hanging out. He said, I went down there and got Rabbit unloose from that deer, and he said, then I had to shoot the deer twice. I said, you had to shoot it twice? He said, yeah, I had to shoot it twice before it finally died. He said, then I helped him gut it and everything, and we started pulling it out. And when we got that deer home, we helped him skin it out. He had broke 3 of that deer's legs with that double-aught buck, but there wasn't a pellet one anywhere that we could find in the body of that deer. So other than having 3 broken legs, the deer was full and strong and healthy other than 3 broken legs. But with that 1 broken leg and his antlers, he beat the shit out of Rabbit. And but Rabbit, he was proud of that deer. He was proud as punch. And this goes back to what I was saying before. A trophy's a trophy. If it's a trophy in your mind, it's a trophy. It don't matter what anybody else thinks. I mean, like I said, I've shot small deer. I put meat in my freezer first, and then I worry about trophy hunting. Because there ain't anything you can do to them antlers to make them edible unless you're a squirrel. So, you know, y'all say what you want to say. I hunt with a bow, I hunt with a crossbow. I know, you know, I see on here on YouTube and TikTok and all these other channels, all these guys are fussing about, you know, all the different, you shouldn't, if you're an able-bodied guy, you shouldn't be hunting with a crossbow, blah, blah, blah. You hunt with what you want to hunt with. I got some elbow problems, I got some back problems. I ain't using none of that for excuses. I hunt with my bow when I hunt here at Buster Bottom. I don't have to carry it very far, and you know, I can get by with it sometimes. Sometimes I use my crossbow. You know, it's heavy too, but it's got a sling on it, and you know, it's just all in what you want to do. So anyway, that's the story of Rabbit and the 8-pointer that whooped his butt. And you know, we loved Rabbit. Rabbit was a good guy, and he was very proud of that deer. And I was very proud of him because he killed it. And that was his second deer that he had ever killed in his life. And that was his first buck. So, you know, that made him very, very happy. So with that, we're going to say, we'll see you later. I'll leave you with a little saying that I like. Life is about choices. It's up to you to make the right choices and the wrong choices and live with the choices you make. So with that being said, as Buster would say, Buster out.